Breaking news! There's been some buzz around here recently, with a lot of rumors flying around, and it's too big to ignore. Let's dive in. But first, make sure to hit the like button and stick around until the end to get the full scoop. Let's go! Mel Kiper and Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock drafts have shaken up the Cleveland Browns draft outlook, and we have a lot to analyze. This is big, really big. With the second overall pick, both analysts have zeroed in on the same name, Penn State edge rusher Abdul Carter. But the real question isn't just who they picked, it's whether the Browns are actually going in that direction, or if something else is brewing behind the scenes. There's a lot of smoke, a lot of speculation, and some important insider clues that could give us a clue as to what's really going on. Let's start by looking at how reliable these mock drafts have been in the past. Last year, Kiper landed 4 or 5 picks in his post-free agency mock draft, but that was in a quarterback-heavy class, one that's easier to predict. In previous years, not so much. He's had stretches where he's landed just 1 or 2 of the top 5 picks. Jeremiah, on the other hand, hasn't fared much better. His record includes a mix of 1 for 5 and 3 for 5 performances. The lesson? These are smart guys, but their projections are far from true. No one, no matter how well connected, has a perfect read on what all 32 teams will do. Now, here's where things get interesting. There's a serious divide between local Cleveland reporters and national insiders about what the Browns will actually do at number 2. If you follow Cleveland reporters, people like Mary Kay Cabot, you'll see a growing belief that the Browns are eyeing a quarterback, specifically Colorado's Shedeur Sanders. But if you trust the big national voices like Kiper and Jeremiah, the focus is on Carter or Colorado's two-way star Travis Hunter. So who's right? And more importantly, what does this tell us about what the Browns are really up to? Here's the big clue, something that could tip the scales. Star defensive end Myles Garrett recently made some comments in an interview with Andrew Siciliano that raised some eyebrows. He mentioned that, after talking to the Browns front office, he has a pretty good idea of who the next quarterback will be. And he likes it. Now, there are 2 ways to read this. Either Garrett is playing the role of a good soldier, helping to spread some misdirection to keep other teams guessing, or, and this is the more likely scenario, the Browns have already hinted internally that they're going to go with the quarterback at number 2. Think about it. If the Browns were targeting a veteran like Russell Wilson, there's no way Garrett would sound so confident. Free agency and trades are fluid, things can fall apart. But if the Browns told you, we're taking Shedeur Sanders at number 2, that's a definitive statement. This is a play they completely control. No uncertainty, no negotiations, no waiting for another team to make a decision. That's why Garrett seemed like someone who knew exactly what was going to happen. So if Garrett's words are to be taken at face value, does that mean Abdul Carter is completely out of the question? Not necessarily, but it makes it much less likely. Carter is a fascinating prospect. He's a high-powered edge rusher with tremendous closing speed and a knack for getting to the quarterback. At 6'4" and 245 pounds, he's not the biggest defensive end, but he's slippery, direct, and incredibly efficient at beating tackles all the way to the point of attack. He had a monster 2024 season at Penn State, racking up 66 pressures, 12 sacks, and 24 tackles for loss. This is a guy who makes plays. And for a team that already has Myles Garrett destroying games on one side of the line, adding Carter could give Cleveland one of the most feared pass-rushing duos in the NFL. But here's the dilemma, is Carter good enough to justify passing on a quarterback? Because let's be real, quarterback is the biggest need, and when you have the number 2 pick, this is your best shot to fix it. The problem? This isn't a great quarterback class. That's the brutal reality. There's no clear-cut, can't-miss prospect at the top. If Caleb Williams was in this draft, he'd go number 1 without question. But he's not. And what's left is a group of quarterbacks that have talent but also serious question marks. That's why some Browns fans are hesitant. They don't want to take a quarterback just for the sake of taking one. They don't want to make the same mistake teams have made in the past, reaching for a QB who isn't really worthy of being a top pick and setting the franchise back years. And that's totally understandable. If you take a quarterback at number 2, you need to be absolutely certain he's your guy. You need to believe he's got the talent, the work ethic, the mental toughness, and everything else it takes to lead a franchise. If you're not sure, then maybe you take the best defensive player available and figure out quarterback another way. But let's flip it around. Let's say you don't take a quarterback at number 2. Let's say you pass on Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward and instead draft Carter. What's your plan at QB? Because if you're rolling into next season with the same issues at the most important position in football, what's really changing? The NFL is a quarterback-driven league. If you don't have one, you're just treading water. So, Browns fans, what do you think? Should Cleveland take Shedeur Sanders at number 2? Should they pass on this QB class and grab Carter? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The stakes couldn't be higher for the Browns. This isn't just about a single draft pick, it's about the direction of the entire franchise. A move like this could define the next 5 to 10 years. That's why this debate isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Let's dive even deeper. If Cleveland is truly leaning toward a quarterback, the next logical question is, why Shedeur Sanders? What makes him the guy? And is he really worth the number 2 overall pick? First, let's acknowledge something. Shedeur Sanders is one of the most polarizing prospects in this draft. Some people love his poise, his ability to extend plays, and his accuracy under pressure. Others question whether he's truly an elite talent or if he's just benefiting from the Deion Sanders effect, his father's influence creating more hype than his actual tape justifies. It's a legitimate conversation. But here's what we do know. Sanders put up impressive numbers at Colorado despite playing behind one of the worst offensive lines in college football. The guy got tackled an absurd amount of times, more than any other quarterback in the country. And yet, he completed over 70% of his passes, threw for nearly 3,300 yards, and posted a touchdown-to-interception ratio of 27-3. But is he worth the number 2 pick? That's where things get complicated. Some scouts see Sanders as a top 10 talent, but number 2 overall? That's a stretch for some evaluators. Now, let's get back to Abdul Carter. If the Browns went with him, what would that mean for the defense? We've talked about Carter's speed, his relentless motor, and his ability to close in on quarterbacks. But let's talk about what kind of impact he could actually have in Cleveland. Imagine a defensive front with Myles Garrett on one side and Carter on the other. That would be scary for opposing offenses. Garrett is already a generational talent, a defensive player of the year type of guy who consistently commands double teams. Pairing him with Carter would create a nightmare scenario for offensive lines. There's always a chance that a team desperate for a quarterback will call Cleveland with a huge offer. If a team is in love with someone like Sanders or Cam Ward, the Browns could drop a few spots, gain extra assets, and still land a high-impact player. But that's a dangerous game to play. If you drop too far, you could lose a quarterback in Carter. Ultimately, it comes down to philosophy. Do you take the best player available, regardless of position? Or do you prioritize the most important position in the game, even if the talent pool isn't ideal? Do you want to take a chance on Carter and build a dominant defense? Or do you think there's a trade scenario that makes more sense? Let me know in the comments. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more updates. Let's go Browns!